There's a video going around right now that has BTS fans, K-pop watchers, and honestly a huge chunk of the internet doing a full double take. And once you hear the story, you will understand exactly why. It starts years ago, inside a college lecture hall in the United States, where a sociology professor stood in front of his students and told them that a boy band from South Korea was about to become one of the biggest cultural forces on the planet. At the time, some students probably smiled politely and moved on with their day. Fast forward to July of 2026, and that same professor's name is trending online again because what he predicted didn't just come true. It happened on the single biggest stage in the entire world, the FIFA World Cup Final, with Jimin and BTS performing in front of a global audience of hundreds of millions of people. So stay with me, because I'm about to walk you through exactly who this professor is, what he actually said, what really went down at that World Cup halftime show, and why so many people online are now claiming this is the moment his old prediction finally got proven right in front of the entire planet. And if this is your first time here, go ahead and tap that subscribe button now, because we're covering every major global moment for Jimin and BTS as it happens. And you do not want to miss what's coming next in this video. Let's start with the man at the center of all this. His name is Sam Richards, and he is a sociology professor at Penn State University, one of the largest public universities in America. Back in 2018, he was teaching a course called Race, Ethnicity, and Culture, a class that regularly pulled in hundreds of students every semester. One day, in the middle of a lecture, he put a single number up on the screen for his students to see, 45 million, and he asked the room to guess what it meant. Nobody in that lecture hall could figure it out. It turned out that number represented how many album copies BTS had sold within 24 hours of a release, a number so massive it had quietly broken a record previously held by Taylor Swift, one of the best-selling artists in American music history. Think about that for a second. In 2018, most casual American audiences barely knew who BTS were, and here was a professor telling a room full of college students that this group out of South Korea was outselling some of the biggest names in Western pop music. That single moment, captured on video, became the foundation of everything that followed, because Professor Richards didn't stop there. He told his class, on record, that Korean culture, Korean music, and Korean storytelling were about to become a dominant force in global entertainment, and BTS was going to be one of the clearest examples of that shift. Now here's where it gets interesting, because that lecture clip didn't just disappear into the internet archives. It resurfaced years later, right around 2021, when Squid Game exploded onto Netflix and became one of the most watched shows in the platform's history. Suddenly, people started connecting the dots. A random professor in Pennsylvania had called this Korean wave years before most of Hollywood or the American music industry took it seriously. The clip went viral all over again, this time not just among K-pop fans, but among general audiences who were watching Korean content dominate global charts for the first time in their lives. In South Korea, media outlets started referring to him almost like a folk hero of sorts, a Western academic who saw hallyu, the Korean wave, coming before almost anyone else outside of Asia did. He started getting invited onto Korean television programs, interview segments, and cultural discussion panels, where he would break down, in plain language, why he believed Korean pop culture, and BTS specifically, were only getting started. And if you're enjoying this deep dive so far, drop a comment below and let me know if you had ever heard of Professor Sam Richards before this, because I guarantee a lot of you are learning about him for the very first time right now, and that's exactly why the story is blowing up again. So that brings us to the actual event that reignited all of this, the 2026 FIFA World Cup Final. On July 19th, at what was formerly known as MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, the world watched something that had genuinely never happened before in the history of the tournament, an official, full-scale halftime show at a World Cup final. This wasn't some small, quiet interlude between two halves of soccer. This was curated by Chris Martin of Coldplay, and it featured an absolutely stacked lineup: Madonna, Justin Bieber, Shakira alongside Burna Boy, The Muppets, conductor Gustavo Dudamel, an appearance from Jason Sudeikis reprising his role as Ted Lasso in BTS. Yes, BTS, performing on a World Cup final stage during the championship match between Argentina and Spain, in front of a stadium packed with fans and a broadcast audience that stretched across nearly every continent on Earth. FIFA and Global Citizen put this whole production together partly to promote an education fund that had already raised more than $60 million by the time the tournament wrapped up, so there was real weight behind this halftime show beyond just entertainment value. And this is the part where Jimin and BTS truly stood out. During their segment, BTS performed Dynamite, one of their biggest global hits, but they didn't just perform it exactly as fans already knew it. They cleverly adjusted some of the lyrics to fit the World Cup moment, working in playful football references that the crowd immediately picked up on. Fans watching live and fans watching the broadcast from home flooded social media and YouTube comment sections almost instantly. People were calling it one of the most electric segments of the entire show. Some viewers pointed out that BTS had performed this exact set less than 24 hours after wrapping up a sold-out concert in Paris as part of their ongoing world tour, meaning the members were almost certainly running on very little rest. And yet by most accounts, their energy on that World Cup stage did not show it at all. Comments were calling their performance one of the standout moments of the entire lineup, with plenty of fans saying that BTS, and Jimin specifically, brought a level of precision and stage presence that matched, if not outshined, some of the biggest legacy pop icons also on that stage that night. Now, not every reaction to the overall halftime show was glowing. This is important for accuracy, because I'm not here to only tell you the good parts. Some sports commentators and former athletes were pretty blunt about their opinions on the show as a whole. Former England football captain Wayne Rooney, for example, was famously candid during live BBC coverage, joking that his favorite part of the show was when it finally ended, and other pundits had mixed takes on the overall length of the break, since the full halftime stretched to roughly 27 minutes once you factored in stage setup and teardown time. But here's the key detail that matters for our story. Even among the more skeptical or mixed reactions to the show's length and pacing, BTS's specific segment kept getting singled out, over and over, as one of the genuine highlights. That distinction matters, because it tells you this wasn't just fans hyping up their favorite group in an echo chamber, this was showing up in broader sports media coverage too. So where does Professor Sam Richards fit back into all of this? Here's where I want to be really upfront with you, because accuracy matters more to me than just chasing a viral narrative. Clips and posts have been circulating online connecting Professor Richards' original 2018 prediction directly to this World Cup moment, with plenty of fans and commentary accounts captioning it as proof that his old prediction had finally, fully arrived. It's being framed across social media as the ultimate full-circle moment. A professor who once had to explain to a confused lecture hall why a Korean group selling 45 million albums in a day actually mattered, now watching that same group perform on the single biggest global sports stage that exists. Whether or not he has made a fresh, direct on-camera statement specifically about this exact World Cup performance is something I want you to take with the appropriate grain of salt, because I could not independently confirm a brand new verbatim quote from him about this exact night. What I can tell you with confidence is that his original prediction is very real. It is well documented. It went viral multiple times over the years, and the cultural moment it forecasted, Korean pop culture becoming a dominant global force, is now playing out on stages as massive as the World Cup Final. So when people online say this proves his prediction, that's the claim being made across social platforms right now, and I wanted to lay out exactly what is confirmed fact versus what is viral internet framing, because you deserve the real picture, not just the hype. And honestly, even without a brand new quote, the pattern speaks for itself if you zoom out. This World Cup Final moment is not happening in isolation. It's part of a much bigger pattern that has been building around Jimin and BTS all year long. Just look at what's been happening throughout 2026 alone. Earlier this year, an item connected to Jimin sold at a Christie's auction and reportedly outperformed items linked to global icons like Lionel Messi and Madonna, two names that basically need no introduction anywhere on the planet. Around the same period, BTS wrapped a historic run of ARIRANG World Tour stops across multiple continents, playing to sold-out stadiums in cities from Tokyo to Paris to London to cities across the United States, breaking attendance and reception records along the way at venues like Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and MetLife Stadium. Jimin's individual artistry has been getting recognized far outside the typical K-pop fan bubble too, with mainstream outlets like Rolling Stone highlighting his work as a performer and dancer, putting him in conversations usually reserved for legacy Western pop stars. When you stack all of these moments together, the Christie's auction, the record-breaking world tour, the mainstream press recognition, and now a World Cup final halftime performance watched by hundreds of millions, you start to see exactly why Professor Richards' old prediction keeps getting dragged back into the spotlight every single time something like this happens. It's not just one video going viral for a day, it's a pattern that keeps repeating and getting bigger every time. If you're new to the Jimin and BTS space, and you're only now discovering how far this has all gone, welcome, because you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel exists for. We break down these massive global crossover moments, explain exactly why they matter, and separate the confirmed facts from the internet hype, so you always know what's actually real. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because moments like this World Cup performance are happening at a pace that is honestly hard to keep up with right now, and I don't want you missing the next one. It also helps to understand just how unusual it is for any group, let alone a group from outside the traditional English-speaking pop music industry, to even get a seat at the table for something like a World Cup final halftime show in the first place. These slots are typically reserved for the absolute biggest names in Western music, artists with decades of chart history behind them. Madonna has been a global icon since the 1980s. Shakira has headlined some of the biggest stages in the world for over 2 decades. Justin Bieber has been a dominant force in pop music since he was a teenager. For Jimin and BTS to be placed directly alongside those names on that exact stage during the actual championship match of the entire World Cup tells you everything you need to know about where the group currently sits in the global entertainment hierarchy. This wasn't a regional broadcast. It wasn't a K-pop specific award show. It was arguably the single most universally watched sporting event on the planet, and BTS earned a spot in that lineup on merit. It's also worth pointing out just how organized and dedicated the BTS fanbase, widely known as ARMY, has been throughout this entire World Cup story. In the days leading up to and following the performance, fans were tracking every single detail, from rehearsal footage that leaked online, to close-up camera angles of Jimin during the performance, to side-by-side comparisons of the adjusted Dynamite lyrics. That level of engagement doesn't happen by accident, and it's part of why clips from that performance kept resurfacing across different platforms for days afterward, reaching audiences who might have scrolled right past it the first time around. Every share, every comment, every reaction video added more fuel to the story, and that snowball effect is exactly why a professor's 7-year-old lecture clip ended up trending again in the middle of a World Cup weekend. Let's talk a little more about why this World Cup moment specifically hit different compared to some of BTS's other massive global milestones this year. A World Cup final is not like a music award show or even a sold-out stadium tour date. It's one of the only events on the entire planet that consistently pulls in a truly global, non-music focused audience. People who might not follow pop music charts at all, people who don't know who's topping the Billboard charts this week, but who absolutely tune in for the World Cup final no matter what. That means Jimin and BTS weren't just performing for their existing fanbase that night, they were performing in front of millions of casual viewers, sports fans, families, people from countries and demographics who may have never intentionally clicked on a BTS video in their life. And by most accounts, and by the reactions flooding in afterward, a huge number of those first-time viewers walked away impressed. That is exactly the kind of exposure that turns casual viewers into curious new fans. And it's exactly the kind of moment Professor Richards was pointing to years ago when he told his students that Korean culture wasn't just going to stay in its own lane. It was going to cross over into spaces that used to feel completely off limits for anything outside of mainstream Western pop culture. There's also something worth mentioning about the timing of all of this. BTS didn't roll into East Rutherford fresh and well-rested for this performance. Multiple reports mentioned that the group had performed a sold-out concert in Paris as part of their ongoing world tour less than a full day before stepping onto the World Cup stage. If you've ever dealt with jet lag from a single long-haul flight, imagine performing a full concert, immediately traveling across an ocean, and then delivering a high-energy, tightly choreographed performance on one of the biggest stages in the world, all within about 24 hours. And yet, based on fan reactions and general commentary from that night, the energy didn't drop. If anything, it became part of the story itself. fans specifically pointing out how demanding that schedule must have been and how impressed they were that it didn't show on stage. That kind of detail matters, because it adds real context to just how much these performers are pouring into moments like this, and it's part of why the reaction online has been so intense. And that Paris to New Jersey turnaround is really just one small snapshot of the schedule Jimin and BTS have been keeping all year long. This World Cup performance landed right in the middle of a sprawling world tour that has already taken the group through cities like Goyang and Tokyo earlier in the year, then across the United States with stops including Tampa, through multiple European cities, and eventually into stadium after stadium across North America, with massive shows in places like Baltimore and Arlington happening within the same general stretch of weeks as this World Cup appearance. Very few artists at any level of fame are able to maintain that kind of pace. Stadium tour dates back-to-back across multiple continents, while also being pulled into one-off global events like a World Cup Final. It genuinely raises the question of how they physically keep this level of output going, and it's a big part of why fans keep saying this era feels different from anything the group has done before, in terms of sheer scale and visibility. Let's also take a moment to talk about why Jimin specifically keeps being singled out inside these bigger BTS moments, because it's not just fan bias. There's a real pattern here worth breaking down. Across interviews, dance breakdowns, and even mainstream press coverage this year, Jimin has repeatedly been called out for his individual stage presence and technical skill as a performer, the kind of recognition that usually takes artists an entire career to build outside of their home industry. When outlets that have nothing to do with K-pop start specifically naming him in conversations about elite-level performers, that's a signal worth paying attention to, and it's part of why so many fans immediately zoomed in on his specific moments during the World Cup broadcast, rather than just talking about BTS as a group in general terms. Now let's zoom out one more time and talk about the bigger picture here, because this is really what ties the whole story together. Professor Sam Richards' original prediction was never really just about BTS selling a lot of albums. That 45 million number was simply the entry point, the shocking statistic that got a room full of American college students to actually pay attention. What he was really predicting was a much bigger cultural shift, the idea that Korean entertainment, Korean storytelling, and Korean pop culture were not some passing niche trend, but were on track to become a permanent, dominant part of global mainstream culture. Squid Game proved that for television. Korean cinema and Korean dramas have continued proving that year after year. And now, a World Cup Final halftime show, one of the most watched events in the entire world, featuring Jimin and BTS performing alongside names like Madonna and Justin Bieber, is proving it again on an even bigger scale than most people would have imagined possible back in 2018. So here's the real question I want to leave you with, and I genuinely want you to answer this in the comments, because I read every single one of them. Do you think Professor Richards actually saw this exact level of global crossover coming back in 2018? Or do you think even he would be surprised by just how far Jimin and BTS have taken it in 2026? Because from where I'm sitting, going from a confused lecture hall full of college students who had never heard of BTS, to Jimin and BTS sharing a World Cup final stage with Madonna in front of hundreds of millions of viewers worldwide, that's not just a prediction coming true. That's a prediction getting completely blown past. Drop your honest take down below. Tell me if you remember when you first heard of BTS, and let me know if this World Cup moment is the one that finally made you a fan if you weren't already. One more thing worth sitting with before we wrap up. Predictions about culture are almost always easy to make and incredibly hard to get right, because trends fade, hype cycles die out, and most viral moments are forgotten within a matter of months. That's actually what makes Professor Richards' original 2018 lecture so interesting to look back on now, whether or not he personally commented on this exact World Cup night. He wasn't just reacting to a passing trend when he put that 45 million number on the screen. He was making a structural argument about where global entertainment was heading, years before most of the industry caught up to that idea. Watching that argument keep getting reinforced, year after year, milestone after milestone, from Squid Game to sold-out world tours to a Christie's auction to now a World Cup final stage, is honestly rare to witness in real time. Most predictions don't get this many chances to keep proving themselves right in such a public, undeniable way. Before you go, Make sure you like this video if you learned something new today, because it genuinely helps this channel keep bringing you these deep dives into Jimin and BTS's biggest global moments the moment they happen. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next update, and stick around because there is a lot more happening around this World Cup story, this world tour, and everything else going on with BTS and Jimin right now. And I promise you do not want to be scrolling past the next video when it drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.